You may not notice it at first, but the greatest noise in your life does not come from the world outside. It comes from the world within. A constant hum, a tightening of the chest, a restless stream of questions that never quite settle. What if I fail? What if I choose wrong? What if everything collapses? And so the mind spins, working tirelessly through problems that do not yet exist, preparing for battles that may never arrive, and exhausting itself over events that are not, and perhaps never will be, within your command. Let us begin here with the simple admission that much of your suffering comes not from what happens to you, but from the story your mind tells about what might happen. You do not fear reality, you fear your imagination of it, and imagination, when undisciplined, becomes a cruel master. Overthinking feels like a form of control, as if reviewing every possibility could protect you from uncertainty. But in truth, it is the opposite. The more you try to predict, the more you try to secure the future, the more the future slips from your grasp. You tighten your hold, and yet the world moves freely. You prepare for every outcome, and none of them arrive exactly as you plan. So you return to thinking, to revising, to worrying, until your mind becomes a battlefield upon which you are both the attacker and the attacked. A Stoic does not calm the mind by force, nor by running away from thought. A Stoic calms the mind by placing thought in its proper domain. There are things you control, and there are things you don't. Overthinking is what happens when you fail to separate the two. Consider this carefully. Your judgments, your choices, your actions, these are yours. The behavior of others, the opinions of the world, the unfolding of events, these are not. Yet most of your overthinking concerns the latter. You try to write the script of the universe, forgetting that you were given control over only one character, yourself. If you wish to calm the mind, begin by returning responsibility to where it belongs. Let the world be the world. Let people be as they are. Let time move according to its nature, not according to your demands. As long as you insist that reality bend to your expectations, your thoughts will churn endlessly, trying to solve an unsolvable equation. But something remarkable happens the moment you distinguish the controllable from the uncontrollable. Your mind exhales, your thoughts settle, and a clear space opens within you, a place where reason can breathe. From this calmness, you can examine your thoughts with honesty. You will find that most of them are not grounded in present facts, but in imagined futures. You fear a conversation you have not had. You replay mistakes from years ago as if doing so will rewrite them. You analyze every detail of a harmless look, a forgotten message, a passing moment, all because you believe the mind must stay busy or something terrible will occur. But listen closely. Thinking is a tool, not a dwelling place. It is meant to serve action, not replace it. Thinking becomes harmful only when it exceeds its purpose. If your thoughts lead to a clear decision, they have done their job. If they circle endlessly with no conclusion, they are no longer thoughts. They are chains. Let me show you something. Imagine you are carrying a heavy stone. You lift it because you believe it is yours to hold. Yet the moment you realize it belongs to no one, not even to you, you set it down without effort. Overthinking is that stone. You do not release it through force. You release it through understanding. The mind calms when it knows what to release. But even after this realization, the mind may still try to return to its old habits. It will whisper that you must analyze a little more, prepare a little more, fear a little more. And every time it whispers, you must answer with clarity. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, you withdraw your attention as you would from an unnecessary argument. Not angrily, not dramatically, simply quietly, like placing a book back on a shelf. And if the answer is yes, then thinking becomes purposeful, grounded, and limited. You focus only on what can be done now. A plan becomes simple, an action becomes small, and worry becomes unnecessary. Understand this well. The mind cannot be forced into calmness. It must be led into clarity. Many people try to silence their thoughts by pushing them away, distracting themselves, numbing themselves. But suppression is only another form of overthinking, a hidden battle with the same enemy. True calm comes not from resisting thought, but from mastering its direction. You master thought the way a sailor masters the wind, by recognizing what you control and what you do not. You cannot command the wind, but you can set your sail. And once you set it correctly, you stop fighting against the world and begin moving through it with ease. There is another truth you must hear. Overthinking is often fear disguised as intelligence. You replay scenarios not because they are useful, but because you are afraid of discomfort. You calculate endlessly because you doubt your ability to handle uncertainty. But the Stoic mind is trained to trust itself, not because it knows the future, but because it knows it will remain steady regardless of the future. Calmness is not the absence of thought, it is the absence of inner conflict. You do not need to know what tomorrow brings. You only need to know that you will meet it with discipline, clarity, and a mind that belongs to you again. This is where tranquility begins. The mind, when undisciplined, behaves like a child left alone in a silent room. It invents problems to feel important. It creates noise to avoid stillness. When you do not give it a task defined by reason, it assigns itself a task defined by fear. And fear has an endless imagination. So you must give the mind a new structure, a new order. You must teach it that not every thought deserves attention, not every impulse deserves pursuit, and not every fear deserves belief. You do not stop overthinking by stopping thought. You stop it by strengthening judgment. Judgment is the gatekeeper of the mind. It decides what enters and what is dismissed. Without judgment, every worry walks in freely, every memory demands analysis, every future possibility claims urgency. But with judgment, you stand at the door of your own consciousness and ask each thought a single question. Does this serve me or does it drain me? If it drains you, release it. If it serves you, act on it. If you cannot act on it, set it aside. It is astonishing how much peace you find simply by refusing to entertain thoughts that have no purpose. But perhaps you fear that letting go of these thoughts means you will become careless, unprepared, or irresponsible. This is the illusion that binds most people to their overthinking. They believe worry is a form of duty, that anxiety is a form of wisdom, that the restless mind is the mark of someone who cares deeply about their life. But concern and chaos are not the same. Preparation and paranoia are not the same. Responsibility and rumination are not the same. A Stoic prepares for life by making steady decisions rooted in the present, not by endlessly examining events that have not happened. A Stoic is not careless. A Stoic is simply unwilling to be mastered by illusions. Understand this well. The mind becomes calm when it sees reality clearly, and reality is always simpler than your thoughts about it. Reality is what you can do now with the tools you have now, in the situation that exists now. Everything else is imagination disguised as urgency. Consider how much mental suffering comes from resisting this simplicity. You expect the world to be kinder, people to be clearer, life to be smoother, your path to be easier. And when reality does not match expectation, you think and think, hoping that more thought will force the world to comply. But every expectation you cling to becomes a source of tension. Every requirement you place on life becomes a demand the universe never agreed to fulfill. Expect nothing, work with everything. This is the quiet formula that steadies the mind. When you no longer insist that life behave according to your design, your thoughts stop revolting against every inconvenience. You stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and begin asking, "How can I respond wisely?" This shift alone calms more anxiety than hours of analysis. The mind settles because it is no longer fighting reality. It is cooperating with it. But there is something deeper still, something few people are willing to examine. Overthinking often hides a craving for certainty. You want to know the right choice before you choose, the right path before you walk it, the right outcome before you commit. You want assurance without action, clarity without risk, and guarantees without effort. But life does not grant such bargains. You cannot live fully while trying to avoid uncertainty. Uncertainty is the cost of existence. And once you accept this cost, the mind relaxes. For it is not the unknown that torments you. It is your refusal to accept that the unknown is natural. There is a kind of strength that arrives the moment you stop chasing guarantees. A strength that says, whatever happens, I will be able to face it. This is not arrogance. It is trust. Trust in your ability to remain steady, adaptable, and rational. When you trust yourself, you do not need the future to behave. People often mistake confidence for the absence of doubt, but true confidence is the ability to move forward despite doubt. It is the calm acknowledgement that doubt is part of being human, not a signal to retreat into endless thinking. You overcome overthinking not by seeking perfect clarity, but by learning to act with imperfect clarity. One step at a time, one decision at a time, no dramatics, no spirals. If you wish for calm, bring your attention back to the present moment. Observe something simple, your breath, your posture, your surroundings, not as a ritual, but as a reminder that life exists here, not in the stories the mind invents. Notice how often your overthinking pulls you away from the present. Your body is in one place while your thoughts drag you to another. You are having a conversation, but thinking about tomorrow. You are eating, but thinking about a mistake from last week. You are lying in bed, but thinking about a problem that has not arrived. No wonder the mind is exhausted. It is rarely allowed to be where the body is. Calmness begins when you bring the two back together, not through force, but through awareness. When you notice the drift, you return. When the mind wanders, you anchor it gently. This is not meditation. This is discipline, the discipline of being where you are. You will find that the present moment is rarely overwhelming. It is the imagined moment that overwhelms you. What you face right now is typically manageable. What you imagine facing tomorrow often feels unbearable. So why fight battles that only exist in your thoughts? Why retreat before an enemy that has not yet arrived? Stay here, act here. Think only as far as action can reach. The rest is noise. Do not underestimate the strength that comes from simplifying your inner world. Remove what is not yours. Release what is not present. Let go of what is not actionable. And you will discover a mind that feels lighter, not because life changed, but because you stopped carrying life twice, once in reality and once in your imagination. This is the beginning of true peace. There is another habit of the mind you must observe if you wish to free yourself from overthinking. Your tendency to replay the past as if you could alter it through memory alone. You return to old conversations, old embarrassments, old decisions, as though the mind were a courtroom and you are still awaiting a verdict. But the past is not a judge. It is a shadow. It follows you because you keep turning to look at it. And every time you look, it grows larger than it truly is. Ask yourself, what does thinking about a past moment accomplish if no action can be taken now? The Stoic answer is simple: nothing. Reflection is useful only when it clarifies your next step, not when it traps you in regret. The mind, however, often confuses rumination with learning. It insists that replaying mistakes will prevent them from happening again, but this is rarely true. You do not grow wiser by punishing yourself with memory. You grow wiser by understanding it once, applying its lesson, and moving forward without dragging the weight of it behind you. Let the past instruct you, not imprison you. Everything that has already happened belongs to a realm outside your control. No amount of thought can reach back in time and alter what is already solidified. So why continue to invest mental effort into a world that is no longer yours? Think of your mind as a room. If you fill it with old arguments, old disappointments, old versions of yourself, you leave no space for clarity in the present moment. You clutter the room with what no longer serves you, and then you wonder why the mind feels cramped, chaotic, and restless. Clean the room, not by force, but by decision. And when the mind drifts back, as it naturally will, you simply remind yourself, this is no longer happening. I owe this thought no attention. A calm mind is not one that never remembers. It is one that refuses to relive. Now let us turn to the future, the other great thief of peace. Just as the past draws you backward, the future pulls you forward, stretching your mind into tension. You imagine outcomes, possibilities, obstacles. You try to forecast the unpredictable, convincing yourself that enough thought will make tomorrow less uncertain. But the future is made of mist. The more you reach for it, the more it slips through your fingers. A Stoic does not seek to eliminate uncertainty. He accepts it as the natural texture of life. You cannot demand stability from a world that is constantly changing, but you can create stability within yourself through reason, restraint, and simple, decisive action. Think of a person standing before a vast landscape of possibilities. Overthinking is the attempt to walk all paths at once. You imagine every turn, every risk, every potential loss, until your mind collapses under the weight of possibilities. And yet you remain standing still, having taken no step at all. You do not need to know the entire path. You only need to know the next step. Action becomes easier when you narrow your focus from what will happen to what can I do now. The former breeds anxiety. The latter builds strength. And strength is the antidote to overthinking. Not the loud, forceful strength of bravado, but the quiet, steady strength of someone who has learned to control their attention. Your attention is your most valuable possession. Where it goes, your emotions follow. Where it goes, your energy flows. Where it goes, your life takes shape. But overthinking scatters your attention across countless directions. It leaves you drained before you even begin. So you must reclaim it, not by resisting thought, but by choosing your thoughts with intention. Ask yourself throughout the day, is my attention on something I can influence right now? If the answer is no, then your mind has wandered into unnecessary territory. Recall it gently, the way you would guide a distracted friend back to the conversation. Do not scold yourself. Do not grow frustrated. The mind has been practicing restlessness for many years. It cannot master calmness overnight. But with each return to the present, you strengthen a new habit, the habit of clarity. Now consider how often overthinking arises from a desire to control other people. You analyze their words, their intentions, their behaviors. You rehearse conversations, fearing what they might say or how they might respond. But another's mind is not your domain. You cannot reason for them. You cannot choose for them. You cannot live for them. When you try to control another person through thought, you chain yourself to an impossible task. This is why your mind spins helplessly. It is trying to solve a problem that does not belong to you. Focus instead on your side of every interaction, your honesty, your clarity, your composure. This is all you truly control. Let others meet you where they are, not where your imagination demands they should be. People reveal themselves through action, not prediction. Let them show you who they are. Until they do, there is nothing to analyze. Notice how much mental space opens when you free yourself from this responsibility that never belonged to you. When you stop trying to manage the inner lives of others, your own inner life becomes far lighter. Finally, there is one more truth you must take seriously. Overthinking is sustained by avoidance. You think endlessly because you do not act. Action cuts through thought the way a blade cuts through knot. It clarifies what is real and dismisses what is imagined. The moment you move, the mind must adjust to reality. And reality is far simpler than fear. If something troubles you, take the smallest actionable step. If a decision feels heavy, break it into choices you can make today. If uncertainty overwhelms you, anchor yourself in one concrete action, however small, however humble. Action turns a spinning mind into a directed one, and a directed mind is a calm mind. When you begin to live this way, thinking only as far as action requires, you will notice something extraordinary. Your thoughts become fewer, but more meaningful. Your day feels lighter, though your responsibilities remain the same. Your energy increases because it is no longer drained by unnecessary mental battles. You become present, you become clear, you become steady, and the world, without changing at all, begins to feel less overwhelming. And so, when the mind wanders into its old habit of spinning webs around nothing, you remind it gently, this too is only a thought. Not a prophecy, not a verdict, not a command, only a passing spark. The Stoics often spoke of the mind like a river, constantly flowing, unable to be held, impossible to stop. The mistake we make is trying to force the river into stillness. You do not still water by pressing your hands into it. You still it by stepping back and letting it settle on its own. Overthinking is nothing more than the mind refusing to let the water rest. So the Stoic trains himself in the art of stepping back, of widening the gaze. When you look not at the thought but at the thinker, you find something surprising. The thinker is not distressed. Only the thoughts are. And a thought cannot hurt you. Not unless you surrender your peace to it. Pause here. Let your breath fall into its natural rhythm. Let your shoulders release whatever they have been holding. Observe the mind the way a traveler observes passing scenery through a window. You don't argue with the mountains or shout at the trees for being the wrong shape. You simply watch, because observation is enough. And slowly without force, and the mind begins to soften. Now consider this. Most overthinking is a direct result of living in a world we cannot control. But the Stoics would say, then why do you insist on controlling it? You fear what might happen tomorrow. You fear what people may think. You fear what you cannot predict or prevent. But tomorrow has never asked for your permission. People's judgments have never belonged to you, and the world has never needed your supervision. Your mind exhausts itself trying to carry responsibilities that were never yours. So the Stoic simplifies his load. He wakes up each morning and asks, what is mine to do today? Not what might go wrong, not what others expect, not what may or may not unfold. Just what is his, nothing more. If it is within his control, he commits to it with calm resolve. If it lies beyond his control, he releases it before it ever has a chance to tighten its grip. This is not passivity, this is clarity, because a mind that knows its limits is a mind that is free. Now imagine for a moment that every troubling thought knocking on your door is a stranger asking to come inside. Most people throw the door wide open. They invite every fear to sit down, every worry to stay for dinner, every doubt to spend the night. Soon the mind becomes crowded, noisy, unlivable. The Stoic does not slam the door in anger. He simply asks, is this thought useful? Is it mine to keep? If the answer is no, he lets the stranger continue down the road. There is profound peace in selective acceptance. And more than that, there is strength. Because strength is not the absence of fear, it is the refusal to become its host. Let us look deeper. Overthinking often disguises itself as preparation, as responsibility, as intelligence. But beneath the mask, it is almost always the same thing, an avoidance of the present moment. The mind spins endless scenarios because it fears the quiet of now. The present is too still, too honest, too real. And yet, everything you need, all the stability, all the clarity, all the grounding, lives only in this single, silent slice of time. The Stoics train themselves to return to the present the way a warrior returns to his shield. Not because life is perfect here, but because it is manageable here. The present is the only territory where action is possible. You cannot act on a future that has not arrived. You cannot change a past that is already written. You can only shape the step beneath your feet. And when you truly see this, the weight of unnecessary thoughts begins to fall away. Now let us move even closer to the core. Overthinking thrives where values are unclear. A person who does not know what truly matters becomes prey to every possibility. He tries to secure all outcomes, please all people, avoid all discomfort. He becomes tangled in his own attempts to live a life without friction. But a Stoic clarifies his values like a sculptor chisels stone, piece by piece, strike by strike. He decides what matters and, equally important, what does not. And in that decision, half of his overthinking dies instantly. When your values are firm, choices are light. When your priorities are clear, worries lose their bite. When your inner compass is set, the storms of uncertainty become mere background noise. So ask yourself honestly, what do I stand for? What kind of person am I practicing to become? What virtues guide my steps? Not in theory, in action. Because your character is not built in moments of peace, but in moments of pressure, precisely the moments when overthinking tends to rise. The Stoic trains himself not to run from these tests, but to welcome them. Not because he enjoys the difficulty, but because he understands this truth. A mind strengthened by challenge becomes a mind unshaken by noise. And once you have seen what you are capable of bearing, the mind becomes less eager to invent burdens. You do not fear imagined catastrophes when you have faced real storms. Continue walking with me for a moment more. The Stoics often emphasize the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is what the world does to you. Suffering is what you do to yourself. Pain is a moment. Suffering is the replay. Pain is the event. Suffering is the story. Overthinking is the narrator that turns small pains into long suffering. But here lies your power. You can dismiss the narrator. You can choose a quieter voice, the voice of reason, discipline, and inner calm. The voice that says, this moment is bearable. This thought is optional. This mind is mine. And in that simple truth, a door opens. Through it lies a life not free from challenge. No philosophy can promise that, but free from the chaos you once created within yourself. Let your breath settle again. Let the silence grow. You may notice that your thoughts drift back, as they always do. That is not failure. That is nature. But now you know what to do. Observe, accept, release, return. This is the Stoic cycle of peace. And as you practice it, moment by moment, day by day, something extraordinary happens. The mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a place you can finally rest.